Good evening and welcome to the August 1st Council of Governments regular agenda meeting. We are going to have the Pledge of Allegiance start. If you'll join me in standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial and will be acted upon by the council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or interested party may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion. Council.
Item 3 for a moment.
I'm sorry, item 3?
Number 4 for me.
Okay.
Number 4 for me.
Gotcha.
Record.
Okay. Leaving items 1, 2, 5, and 6. Do we have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any interested parties asking to have any of the items pulled? Staff?
Yeah. I'd like to request from the council that we pull and table item number 4 for consideration at the next meeting. County staff has requested to resubmit a different invoice package. So we'll be bringing that item back
Okay.
at the next meeting.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. Seeing no further interest, do we have a motion to approve items 1, 2, 5, and 6? Moved by Councilmember Merides,
Second.
second by Councilmember Harn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 6-0. Supervisor Mills, you've asked that item number 3, the minute order approving the appointment of 2 SISTAC members, be discussed.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I noticed on page 62 of this item that there is currently 4 vacant positions,
Right?
and that with the number of active here, is this board capable of meeting on a regular basis and meeting the quorum requirements?
They currently do. We do have some dedicated attendees. We also usually have several attendees that aren't on the SISTAC, just other, members of other agencies that attend and really provide good feedback. But, clearly we need to fill these vacant positions. It's very important to be able to conduct our business.
I appreciate everybody, the 2 that stepped up to be added here. I just wanted to be sure that we weren't falling into a trap of not having a quorum and not having regular meetings is all.
Yeah, and we've done pretty good the last several years with the SISTAC committee until just recently this year. A couple members falling off, so hopefully we'll get back to a full committee here pretty quickly. And I think with the new transit agency, I think the SISTAC will hopefully play a larger role in transit services, so maybe that will generate more interest in the committee.
Are we still advertising for this?
Yeah, we have just kind of an ongoing advertisement. We've asked transit to put advertisements in the buses, so hopefully they'll do that. And, we keep reaching out to our not member agencies, but partner agencies to try to generate more interest.
Actually, we have 5 because 1 has expired, but I've had that conversation with you about
Correct.
reappointing, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't had an opportunity to speak with that member to see if she's still interested in continuing, so
Thank you.
we've left her on.
Okay.
So reach out and talk to her.
Okay. What was requested is a minute order approving this, so I would need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Councilmember Mills, seconded by Councilmember Cantillano. All those in favor?
I didn't.
I'm sorry?
I didn't speak.
Oh, you said second. I'm sorry. Okay, second by Councilmember Merides. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 6-0. Item 4 has been tabled. Item number 7, public comment. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes per person and shall be limited to items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council and not on the posted agenda. Do we have public comment this evening? Okay. Seeing none. Item number 8, accepting the Systemic Safety Analysis Report Program, final report and proposed Highway Safety Improvement Program applications. Ms. Collins.
All right, thank you. This project began in December of 2017. It was a coordinated effort with the Amador County Transportation Commission and Alpine County. We executed an MOU with ACTC for shared staffing and consultant services, and ACTC managed the process and managed the consultant contract, which helped us save money and also resulted in shared staffing resources, which the COG is very limited at this time, so it was very helpful that ACTC kind of stepped forward and assisted in this process. The purpose of this project is development of a tool and a process to assist the county and city in making data-driven decisions, and a process to prioritize competitive grant applications for the city and county. The consultant scope also included the development of grant applications for the city and county for the Highway Safety Improvement Program, the HSIP grant program, which funds safety projects on local roadways. And the SSAR was really a program developed specifically to develop projects for the HSIP grant program. We included attached to the staff report the final report that was developed, and Mark Thomas was the lead consultant firm on this project. We have here with us Dan Blomquist, who will kind of provide a brief presentation of the project and kind of the outcomes of the process. And I'll hand it over to you, Dan.
Thank you. So like Amber said, what the whole purpose of the SSAR program is about was really trying to take a more... Okay. Well, hopefully that helps. Excuse me. So just kind of reiterate a little bit what she said. The SSAR program has been brought up as a program by the federal level and adopted by the state as a way of taking a systematic, data-driven analysis of collisions throughout a region or an area and identifying systematic improvements, i.e. lower cost improvements that can be applied across the roadway system with the intent of proactively trying to prevent incidents, as opposed to the more standard approach that's been used up to recently with the HSIP program, which is a more of a reactive approach that identifies hotspot locations and then specifically looks at specific intersections or curves or something like that and tries to implement safety countermeasures at those specific locations. So we're trying to take a top-down approach as opposed to a bottom-up approach to reducing incidents. With that in mind, we conducted this analysis across 3 counties, actually. So after we started, Alpine County did come into the process, and so we looked at collisions throughout their roadways. But focusing this presentation on the data that we got for Calaveras County, some of the broader results we looked at were the types of primary collision factors that occurred across the county, and tried to compare those, how they compare to the rest of the state in the various types of challenge areas that the state identified in the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. So a couple of the things I wanted to point your attention to were areas of concern that coming into this were speed-related collisions, which the collisions throughout Calaveras County, being a more rural county with higher speed highways, they're above the statewide average. So that brought it up as an area of concern. Whereas DUI-related collisions, below statewide average. And then, of course, ped and bike-related collisions below statewide averages, just going to some of the lack of activity in this area and facilities. Going beyond that, we looked at the breakdown of the types of collisions that occurred. So this doesn't really take into why the collision happened, but really what was the result. By and large, given the rural character of the county, the hit object and overturn collisions, where these are essentially the single vehicle incidents where people run off the road or turn over their car on the road, were the predominant type of collision that we ended up focusing our countermeasures on for this application, for this program. You will notice that there are still somewhat significant locations where there are broadside, rear-end, and side-side collisions, and those were concentrated mostly in the more developed areas, San Andreas, Angels Camp, and we did spend some time looking at those corridors in those areas as well. Now, let me actually back up here. Sorry, I missed something. So looking at primarily at the hit object and overturn collisions, there's a document out there called the Local Roadway Safety Manual that Caltrans has published, and it's got the range of allowable safety countermeasures, or the pre-approved safety countermeasures for applications. Some of the specific ones that we were able to pull out of that one that are applicable to the hit object and overturn, which were areas that we brought into our focus analysis of corridors. We're doing sign upgrades for the curb warning signs, also focusing on the issues regarding nighttime visibility, edge delineation and such on the roadways. Upgrading existing guardrails or finding locations where new guardrails may be implemented. Considering implementation of high friction surface treatments, which is something I'll go into a little bit later. Improving segment lighting, improved beacons or warning devices for approaching intersections, and then upgrading pedestrian crossings in some of the more urban areas.
Would hit object, which you're speaking about, avoiding hitting an animal on the road or a deer or something, fall into that category also?
Actually, no.
No.
Hit object is a different type of collision. It would probably fall under the other. Where it gets
I was going to
classified.
ask.
It's actually brought up more of a collision factor than it is a collision type.
Okay.
And we actually found that wasn't happening, at least it wasn't being reported in the data that we had substantially throughout the county. And that reminds me, we should probably go into where the data came from. Largely it came from the statewide incident reporting system, SWITRS, with supplemental information brought by the UC Berkeley TIM system, which are basically aggregates of collision records from Highway Patrol and local law enforcement agencies that we use to basically pinpoint and map all of the collisions throughout the county. And we looked at the last 5 years of collisions, this study. And specifically, that data allowed us to analyze and identify specific segments on which to focus and come up with potential implementation measures and countermeasures that we could implement on the roads now, and possibly with the idea that we are directing ourselves to getting HSIP funds for their implementation. We developed a list of essentially focus segments of roadways and some intersections throughout the county. And this was developed mostly looking at the crash rate, which is a measurement of essentially the number of crashes that happen on a corridor, and then with factors associated with ADT and the length of the corridor that you're looking at. And this identified essentially actually a pretty interesting mix of roadways, looking at it this way, that includes some of the lower volume local county roads and the higher volume state routes through the county. We supplemented this with some consideration of the overall crash cost, which that is a factor of the severity of the crashes and the number of crashes that happen. So essentially a fatal crash has a higher cost than a property damage only crash. And that's how that's developed. And so the number of crashes goes more into that. And that actually, if we looked only at that, we would have focused our attention 100% on the state routes throughout the county.
However, the Wagon Trail project, that's an amazing number for the last two down there at the bottom, State Route 4.
Yes,
That's an amazing number.
lots of crashes out there, yes.
Yeah.
But lower crash rates on parts of that than other roadways.
Yeah.
Supplement this, we also included, we broke this up into 3 ways we looked at this. We looked at the rural urban segments, and then some more of the urban segments, which were in the more developed areas, if you want to qualify as a true urban area or not, but we looked at areas through Valley Springs, San Andreas, Copper Cove, Angel Camp, and Arnold as part of this analysis. And then we looked at specific focus intersections. Now, intersections that came up in our roadway segments, we obviously paid attention to them. If they were specific locations where there were multiple incidents at an intersection on a rural segment, we looked at that intersection. But in addition to that, we looked at some specific intersections that were brought up either from public comment or other staff comment, and we spent some time looking at possible county measures at those locations, and that included some of the state route versus state route intersections throughout the county. Now, the intent here was to identify and apply countermeasures in a manner that we can apply for potential HSIP funds with the current cycle of HSIP. Now, the current cycle of HSIP is cycle 9. The calls for projects happen roughly every other year. The current applications are due at the end of August. There's a minimum cost for a project of $100,000 to qualify, and there's also, and there's a maximum allotment per agency of $10 million, which allows the state to disperse the money more accurately across multiple regions. The key requirement for projects to be eligible for base HIP is really, though, the benefit cost ratio, or essentially the BC ratio. The minimum allowable for cycle 9, this changes per cycle, is currently 3.5. So essentially, the crash reduction benefit of an application has to be 3.5 times the actual cost of the project. And typically, the amount of an awardable project varies. It can go up and down depending on the number of applications we hear, but we targeted a minimum of about 5 for a potential application that we presented on this one, a BC of 5 to 1. Within HIP, there's allotments for specific types of projects, and a lot of these are tied to the priorities set up in the strategic highway safety plan. One of those is guardrail upgrades, essentially replacing existing guardrails that have been damaged or don't meet current standards around the county. This is the kind of project you don't need a BC ratio for. You just basically need to identify locations where guardrail upgrades are necessary. And there's a maximum allotment per agency of $1 million for that, essentially, and no BC required. There was a couple other ones where no BC required. The other one I wanted to probably highlight was the pedestrian crossing enhancements. Given there was not a whole lot of pedestrian crossing incidents, at least, and definitely not enough to justify wholesale improvement projects like adding sidewalks or creating new crossings, there is an allotment of money per agency of $2,000 without a BC ratio that you can use to upgrade existing crossings. That's something we looked at too, going through a lot of areas. So moving on to essentially what we had identified as the highest or most higher priority types of projects that could be used and applied for with HSIP funds. By far the highest BC ratio project that we were able to identify through this process is called the RSSA and sign upgrades. RSSA means roadside safety and signing audit. Essentially, it's a process where you go by and electronically scan and take measurements on all the signs along the roadway segment. You identify the current condition of the sign, its proximity to the roadway, and whether or not it meets current standards for MUDC requirements on placement, the sign type, the advisory speeds, and the reflectivity associated with the sign. So it takes a pretty detailed scanning system and applies it across all the county roadways. And this is being done currently in Tuolumne County. It's been done recently in Nevada and Placer counties as similar under HIP for similar projects. The overall focus here is really it's going to be identifying a lot of the curb warning signs, whether or not curb warnings need to be upgraded or advisory speed flags changed based on the length of the curves, the rate of curvature, things like that. That would be the project would be able to identify. And we'll come up with a list of sign relocation, removal, and installation recommendations. So we looked at this as standalone projects within the City of Angels on Calaveras County on the roads, and just as a measure of consideration for applicability on the state routes within the county as well. Though that project would be subject to, obviously, further consideration and coordination with Caltrans in order to implement. A couple things to note on that one. There would be a local match required of the agencies who have applied for this, whether this is CalCog or Angels or Calaveras. And those matches are based off of the additional costs associated with doing the roadside scanning and applying that, which kind of exceeds the normal allotment for a design type project. HIP allows up to 25% of a construction cost for the design and environmental. This would exceed it with the roadside scanning application, and that's where the match comes from.
Can I ask a question about
Yes.
that? think we already were granted money for the reflectivity of the signs. Is that something different than this particular project?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because we're working with the city and county. They haven't moved forward with any of those projects yet. We did program RSTP funds for retroflectivity upgrades for the city and county. And we're actually going to use that as the local match because this project does more than just the retroflectivity, and it does the actual upgrade. So the local match for Angels Camp here, showing here, is much lower. I think we have programmed 80,000. So there'll be, remaining funds in that project we can reprogram for the city to a different project. I believe the local match for the county is about in line with what they currently have programmed for retroflectivity work.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So, good catch.
Second type of HIP application that we're looking at right now, potential HIP application, is guardrail upgrades. Again, there's a $1 million max per agency for this. Simply need to identify locations where guardrails need to be replaced. We are currently working with the county to identify locations for potential application right now. Actually, 10 minutes before I left the office, they had sent me a list and we start sorting through on this locations throughout.
The county did?
Yes.
I need that list.
I need that list, too.
Could you send us that list? Or we'll get it from Public
We'll
Works.
just get
I'll
it from
just
Matt.
get it from Matt.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. Or Amber would have it. And the third application we're currently looking at is pedestrian crossing enhancements. Like you said, this one is essentially upgrades to existing crossings, not creating new ones. But we're looking at doing high visibility pavement treatments, enhance, pavement markings like the yield striping in advance, higher visibility signs, essentially the signs properly placed in advance, crosswalks that get high retroflective yellow, get fluorescent yellow treatment, potential application of rectangular rapid flashing beacons at the crossings, essentially an actuated system for pedestrians to push when they enter the crossing. And then, of course, the associated ADA curb ramp improvements that would go with any upgrade project. The costs on these vary by location greatly, depending on the need for ADA upgrades and the potential drainage impacts associated with those. But we've identified, and I'm sorry, this is still flipped. There's actually 9 locations in Angels Camp and 5 in Calaveras County as
No,
potential areas.
that's the reverse. Calaveras County is 9, Angels Camp's 5.
Yeah, that's wrong. The slide is wrong.
Oh, the slide is wrong.
Yeah.
I see. Well, let me ask you this question on this then. Is that for only improvements and not increasing those numbers?
Increasing the,
Adding crosswalks,
essentially it's for upgrading existing
just
crosswalks.
upgrading, so not existing, not.
To create a new crosswalk, you would need to either meet some additional traffic and warrant requirements for adding crosswalks that you want to take a look at that we didn't do as part of this. But there's also the need for potential BCs for new crosswalks to come to the HSIP program.
Thank you.
And finally, based on some of the comments we've received from the county, we're asked to look at one specific intersection improvement, specifically at Auburn Ferry Road and Dutchess Drive. Essentially, the county already has their hands in place to widen this roadway, and very recently there's been a fatal incident and another couple more recent incidents going further back. So we looked at the application of an HIP project for this, a creation of HIP project for this, based on the countermeasures that are applied out there, which is adding the turn pocket and widening the shoulders. And with the cost that was provided by the county, we're able to identify a potential BC of about 4.28. So it is an eligible project. It's not going to be a potential highly scoring project, but it is a potential HIP application to move forward with. And there is a local match required on that. About 10% of the total project cost would be local match. And finally, just so you know, we covered some more bases on this, and there were some additional non-systemic projects we looked at spot locations throughout the county as part of this. We drilled down from the top, and eventually we got down to hot spots. And we looked at some of the ones that were reported areas of concern, identified potential projects like adding left turns at 49 Pull Station Road here in San Andreas, such as adding a traffic signal at the State Route 12 in the shopping center driveway in Valley Springs, adding left turns further up Oak Burns Ferry at Copper Cove, and then looking at a specific project that had already been identified to add a signal and modify the intersection here at 49 and Mountain Ranch Road in San Andreas. So Pull Station Road and 49 were the only ones that came up with a qualifying BC ratio. It'd be something to move forward with. But again, it's on State Route 49, which means there's some additional Caltrans coordination involved with the project. So our next steps, at this point, we want to take final comments and finalize the SSAR and move forward with preparing a application that needs to be done by the end of the month.
Council comments. Councilmember Hedges.
Question? Earlier on in your presentation, you talked about the return or the cost of the project versus the number of accidents and whatnot.
Yes.
How are you dealing with fatalities? How are they being weighed into that process?
So there is a standard process essentially that assigns a crash cost to a fatal and severe and property damage only. And that scale starts at roughly around $2 to $3 million for a fatal type incident, depending on the location, whether it's a roadway segment or an intersection, and then goes down to less than $60,000 for a property damage only type incident. And so those are applied in each incident.
Further council comments.
On the projects that are eligible for local match, does the county have the money for that?
Yes, in the case of the one on Dutchess and Burns Ferry, money's been allocated into the CIP for next year.
There's only one project for local match that you said, 166,000, which is the one
Yeah.
on Burns Ferry.
That's it.
Yeah.
And the other one was answered with the reflectivity.
Yeah.
Any further council comments? Any public comments? I want to thank you for another half page of acronyms on page 131. There's also those were answered. This is a minute order accepting the systemic safety analysis report and also the proposed highway safety improvement program applications. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Councilmember Munides, seconded by Councilmember Catalano. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 6-0.
Appreciate your attention to detail, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Agenda item number 9, a minute order approving the award of a PSA agreement with Transit Marketing LLC for a branding plan and marketing services for the Calaveras Transit Agency. Ms. Collins.
Okay, thank you. I think
Tonight, I guess.
I'm sorry?
as discussed previously, the formation of the new transit agency is an opportunity to create a new identity and brand for Calaveras Transit here in the county, and to bolster the awareness and perceptions of our service, while also being able to execute a robust marketing campaign and efforts. And I think Calaveras currently has really no marketing collateral and materials. Currently, our transit schedules are limited to 8.5 pieces of sheets of paper. We're running out of copies around the county. When we're talking with other organizations, they need additional copies. So I think we looked at this as an opportunity. While we need to develop those marketing materials, at the same time, we might as well go through the branding effort and really refresh the look of Calaveras Transit, since we are already in a position of having to reprint and redevelop all these materials.
Have we had any discussions about creating a mobile app for transit?
Yeah, so we did just upgrade the Calaveras Transit website. It's calaverastransit.com, which is the same domain name that it's been. And we're working with Paratransit Services. They actually have somebody on staff that is going to coordinate with us to develop, I think, convert that website into more of a mobile-friendly application. So, yes. So the COG released an RFP on June 15th, and we received 2 proposals by the closing date of July 13th. Proposal review committee reviewed the proposals based on the criteria in the RFP. And based on this review, Transit Marketing LLC was the top-ranked proposal and is being recommended for contract award. Transit Marketing is based out of Tucson, Arizona, and they specialize in developing marketing plans and programs for public transportation systems. Transit Marketing will be partnering with Think Graphic Design to provide the graphic design services. And Transit Marketing had partnered when we did our last short-range transit plan update effort. They partnered with mobility planners to do the marketing plan of that effort. And they're a very well-known firm. They've done quite a few impressive branding efforts. So we're really excited about the potential work that they could do here in Calaveras. So requesting the council to award a contract to Transit Marketing to execute phase 1, which will be the branding plan, currently scheduled for completion no later than December of this year. So we're looking to kind of execute this pretty quickly to align it with the next service schedule changes.
Council comments?
Looking at their schedule, it's pretty aggressive. They'll be complete by, say, November 1st to us.
Yeah, it's an aggressive schedule.
Yeah, it's very aggressive.
Yeah.
And they agree to it.
They have
We're
agreed
gonna
to
hold
it, but
our
it
feet.
is dependent on us being able to, organize the working group and our board meetings to align with that schedule. So it's
Okay.
probably going to be more dependent on us than them.
The rebranding of the buses, when we talked about advertising on the buses, the comment made last month had to do with strategically branding the bus to maximize the advertising potential space in the bus. So that'll be part of the thinking as part of this rebranding effort.
Yeah, I think it's good timing that this is aligning with a potential contract award for a broker this evening for the advertising services. So we'll be able to use that consultant's expertise on advertising to inform, the wraps for the buses in that branding effort.
I have all the confidence in the world you'll be able to corral up all of the moving parts and make it work in time. And today's date is?
Yeah, I've got work to do.
Any further council comment? Any public comment?
Good evening, Kathy Topol, Copperopolis. Can we just get a cost on what you're looking at for your budget for that?
20,000.
20,000. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the award?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Tofinelli moved. Second was Councilmember Udis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 6-0.
All right, next week, kickoff meetings, I see.
Item number 10, a minute order authorizing the contract amendment number 2 with McGuire Management Consultancy for tasks associated with the implementation of the Calaveras Transit Agency. Ms. Collins.
Thank you.
You want to table this? He's not here.
Not a requirement, but I can. I'm sure he'll be at the next meeting. As the council's aware, in November, we executed a contract with McGuire Management Consultancy to facilitate the process of forming a joint powers agreement between the city and county and a transition plan. That work was completed, and the city and county executed that JPA in March. We executed amendment number 1 with McGuire Management Consultancy for the next step of implementation of the transition plan. Now we are complete with that. we assumed full responsibility of Calaveras Transit on July 1st. So now is kind of the third final step here of cleaning a few things up, finalizing some of our reporting templates, reviewing our ADA policies, and then most importantly is the operations contract. So as you're aware, the new operations contract began in April and ends in March of 2019. So we're at the point here of needing to evaluate and work with paratransit on, are we going to be executing the term agreements, which there's 2 one-year term extension options, or are we going to be releasing a new RFP? So we would like to use Phil McGuire for that expertise in working through that process.
Thank you for not including airfare in this one.
I did take that out.
Any further council comments about the authorization of contract amendment number 2?
So moved.
Public comment?
Right.
Yeah. Is there any public comment on authorization of this contract amendment? Seeing none, I'm hearing a motion being moved by Councilmember Mills.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Harmon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved, 6-0. Item number 11, a minute order authorizing the executive director to execute an exchange agreement with the MTC in the amount of $1,157,000 in CMAQ funds. Ms. Collins.
All right. At the June COG board meeting, the council provided direction to negotiate an agreement with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission to loan or exchange the congestion management air quality funds that are currently at risk of lapsing. Since that time, COG and MTC staff has negotiated an agreement to include the unobligated CMAQ balance as of July of 2018, plus fiscal year 18-19 apportionment, which totals approximately $1.157 million. The 18-19 was included because we coordinated with county staff regarding the Mount Ranch Road project, which is currently programmed for that year, and they will not be able to obligate those funds in that year and potentially not until fiscal year 2021. So staff felt it was in the best interest of the region and to protect those funds to loan those funds out, and MTC would pay COG back in regional surface transportation program funds, which can be utilized for the same types of projects that we utilize CMAQ for. It's actually easier to administer, and with CMAQ you have to show air quality benefits and do calculations for every project. So the RSTP funds are much easier to utilize and administer. So it actually was a very good deal for Calaveras. So they'd pay back RSTP in fiscal year 19-20. The MTC board approved this agreement at their July 25th meeting, and so we'll be looking to the COG board to approve the agreement, and we'd execute that agreement and move forward with working with Caltrans on the reprogramming of those funds. Moving forward, after execution of the agreement, we'll be working, COG staff will be working with TAC to bring back a recommended approach to programming the RSTP funds in 19-20. So it'll need to be a future board action.
Council comments.
There's no interest involved?
No interest.
You had conversations with Matt Boyer on this,
With his staff.
with his staff,
Yeah.
but not him? His staff being Kelly and
The
Robert?
project manager, so Jen Ellis, and
The approximately $70,000 that's left off of this 1.2 million, do we have that obligated already? So
yeah, that's going towards the Angels Camp electric vehicle charging station at the Visitors Center, and that's a good project that's able to be obligated very quickly. They already obligated $7,000 for environmental, and then this next year they'll be able to obligate the remaining $63,000 for construction.
Excellent.
Any public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. All of you, I think, are aware that I get up here and rant and rave about non-project delivery, and the resulting unfortunate situation is that you build up funding that you don't use, or that the county doesn't use, I should say, and it reaches a point where it's in jeopardy of lapsing. Same thing happened 3 years ago. I don't know if you all remember. It wasn't quite this much money, but fortunately, your former executive director, and the same is true with this one, was able to arrange, in her case, Melissa's case, was able to arrange a loan to San Joaquin County, and because they had projects ready to go, and gave the CMAQ money to the, didn't give it, but loaned it to them, and it was paid back. And here you got the same situation almost. I don't know whether it's going to be a loan or exchange, but I'm told that you may be able to receive RSTP money in exchange for your CMAQ money. But the point is, it's not being used. And I was just talking with someone yesterday, I was telling Amber, about being a county engineer, former county engineer. We used to get together at conferences and we'd all moan and groan about how we never had enough money to do things. You know, we never had enough money to patch the roads, to resurface. And here we are with the county reaching a point where if it wasn't for Amber, you would have lost the CMAQ money. It just amazes me that agencies will reach that point. And I think you need, and I think it's being done now, some monitoring needs to be done so you don't get in these ticklish situations, because someday you may not be able to loan it or exchange it with another planning agency, and then it's going to lapse. And as I was telling this person yesterday, I said, you know, you get a reputation, and I've said this before too. You know, Caltrans sticks out his hands with a bag full of money, or the feds do, and they give it to you, and you sit on it, and you don't use it. That is, when I say you, I mean the county of Calaveras. They don't use it to a point where it's going to lapse. And nobody likes to see that. And I'm hoping that the council will continue, as Amber has started now, or continued what Melissa started, monitoring these funds so that they don't reach that point. Thank you.
Hi again, Kathy Topol, Copperopolis. I was recently privileged with the opportunity of being invited to a rural transportation summit in Berkeley. And what they're looking for is they're looking for rural communities that would like to put into place things that would help this congestion mitigation, air quality. Some of the examples that it was a brainstorming session. It was between funders and rural transportation providers, grant makers, the feds. I mean, Toyota was there. I mean, there was a lot of people there. I talked to Amber a little bit about it. And Toyota, Volkswagen, and many other agencies that are used to be manufacturers of vehicles are now looking for ways for mobility options. Rather than just manufacturing vehicles, they're getting into other things. And I think as a small rural county, we need to get a hold of this. We need to get involved in it. We need to, a couple of suggestions they had, or that we came up with, I should say, was bike lanes. Increasing bike lanes so that we can have battery-operated scooters for these people that need mobility and can't take a transit, don't have a vehicle, but they can have a motorized or an electric vehicle. I think, Amber, if I'm not mistaken, that's what some of these should be looked at for, because it will clean up our air quality. It will get people moving. Toyota and Volkswagen currently gave us presentations on, I can't remember the name, what they're calling the vehicle, but it's a
Hydrogen?
No, it's a remote control, not a remote control, a self-driving.
Connected vehicles, automated vehicles?
Self-driving vehicle. And they actually asked me point blank if we thought that would work in our county. And these were not going to have guides on them. But I think if we had something like that with a guide on it that would help operate these, I think we need to really look into that, because the money is out there right now. The ideas, they want ideas that they can try. They want people that'll, try to do what they call that project, help me, Amber.
Pilot?
Yeah.
Pilot project, yeah, thank you. So I think really that this is the kind of stuff, I mean, we're having $1 million that we're giving to somebody else, but we could be using that to add to funds to do these pilot projects. So I encourage you to look into that. Thank you.
Further public comment?
It's good to hear you're putting in a charging station in Angels Camp. I know that I had talked to Darren Spellman prior to Mr. Kearney being in office, and he was looking at putting in different charging stations within the Rancho Valley Springs larger area. And as we work forward towards the future, I think that would be a good consideration, is to open up the door to that in the future and possibly look into those going in down there so that we can spend the money in a prudent amount of time so it doesn't sunset. Thank you.
Any further council comment? Do we have a motion to authorize the executive director to execute the exchange agreement?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Landry, second by Councilmember Catalano. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 6-0. Caltrans report.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Gregoria Ponce, Caltrans, Office of Rural Planning. I wanted to begin by sharing some information, bringing to your attention 2 items that were passed out. The first item is traffic advisory, construction advisory. It's a handout for work that will be occurring. It's a description that identifies 8.5 miles State Route 49 that will undergo work. It includes the logistics, identifying State Route 12 from McCollum River Bridge all the way down. And you can see where, by the graphic, it starts at 12, has a break, and then continues on 49 by Moki Hill all the way up to the bridge. That was a part of our SHOP project. We've released that as part of a weekly report for those who are interested in obtaining information of work weekly that's coming through that could propose or impose delays through your system, through our system rather. There's also a bridge widening and rail project coming up at the bridge on the north end, but that's a separate project. The other item that was handed out, I believe, is the mile marker. It is the latest one. Has some information that may be of interest to you. Following up on that, I had some items that I brought forward and investigated from the last meeting. The first one is State Route 26 and 49 Junction. Supervisor Tofanelli expressed concern with regards to accident data, some fatality that occurred, and looking for some signage or controls. In following up with that, we have installed intersection warning signs on north and south as you go through there, and I purposely drove through there this evening to see they are up and functioning. And that resulted from a safety study that was conducted and concluded for that area. You'll hear throughout my report there are a number of safety studies throughout the county, and so I'll be touching on those as well as a few other items. Moving forward, again...
Thank you. Thank you for doing that,
You're very welcome.
following through on it. Thank you.
You're welcome. State Route 26, Vista del Lago, a prior inquiry. A safety study is in fact underway. We anticipate it'll be completed soon. We have a number in the queue for Calaveras, and we are aware that once these studies are concluded, we will be sharing the outcome of those studies with you all. And we anticipated it being completed in mid-August. And at that point, we'll release information of what we've identified and any follow-up steps needed as appropriate. We had an inquiry with regards to Greenhorn Creek and Angel Oaks name change, as well as some street lighting considerations, and I wanted to just follow up on that. So for the name change, the signs, they have been ordered. We anticipate them coming forward. They've been fabricated, and we're anticipating shipment, and we're looking at a September time frame for that. The contingency for that, of course, is if fabrication for any reason is delayed or the shipment is delayed, we'll look into that and make sure those that gets addressed, and subsequently those get installed. Street lighting. For elements regarding street lightings, one of the pieces for us is that we actually have to do a safety study to look at what's current, what's baseline, and what's happening, and what's precipitating the need. And that study is coming out of our traffic safety branch, and we're working with Amy Augustine as well as Ms. Collins in providing information for that. And again, results for that particular safety study, once concluded, will be forwarded. We had an inquiry for guardrail safety study just past Murphy's. And I believe this resulted from a request I see from Supervisor Dennis Mills. That study is in fact underway, and we anticipate a mid-August date. And again, that will be rolled out once concluded, and share that information. During a SISTAC meeting, there was a request for upcoming roadwork detail. And I believe the requester was Cynthia Lawrence. And so what we've done is we've taken steps to add her as a recipient to our weekly road report. So as that weekly road report for the upcoming week comes out, that'll be tagged. And if anyone else wants to be added to that list for a weekly road report and upcoming delays through the system, please let me know. If you have any inquiries on anything, on any pieces or elements, I've also included a small card that was handed out. And that's the card to PIO. And on there is a yes, thank you, thank you. And there's an email on there. And so as you have questions, you have inquiries, you have concerns, you want to share your thoughts, please send that to the PIO there, because what that does for us is it drops your concern right at our front doorstep. And so we all as offices begin looking at what's been brought forward. Of course, there are other venues that you currently use, and those are certainly welcome as well, but I did want to share that card as an additional venue for communication. Last but certainly not least, was brought to my attention late July. We received an inquiry from council member, or actually the executive director, Ms. Collins, on recent speed limit sign changes that occurred through the area that were a result of a speed study concluded earlier this year. I wanted to share that when we received that information, we immediately began investigating, and we expeditiously provided the background information for that. A speed study was conducted. It began in December of 2017 and concluded in March of 2018. Our speed studies are very specific and have a process wherein while we are conducting the speed study, we do an outreach. We do an outreach to the executive director, we do outreach to Public Works, we do outreach to CHP. At that time for this particular study, we received no feedback. In that, as no comments were received, we, in alignment with our established process for on-system, we proceeded pursuant to the outcome of the speed limit study. My office, in providing this background information to Ms. Collins, and her concerns have now been elevated to the deputy for traffic operations. We're looking at where we can go from here now. And also working with Mr. Matt Boyer, I believe our current interim Public Works. We received an inquiry from him that directly went to the deputy. So that exchange is essentially in play. And so we're looking at that from our end. For further noticing in terms of assuring that this doesn't happen again, what we've done is we've added as required contacts the current executive director and your director of public works as to receive any safety or speed study outreach to ensure that we receive responses. We wanted to make sure that it lands not just on one desk, but two desks, and also do follow-up, because we're fully aware as we're working, we're cooperating, we're coordinating, we're collaborating, we're communicating. We need to hear from you. And we recognize that we're co-developing and co-opting plans. So we want to be sensitive to that. I am available to be involved in any continued dialogue in terms of meetings, but I'm fully aware that the executive director, your public works, and the deputy for our traffic ops, as well as traffic safety, will be doing some follow-up.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
In your outreach program, if you could possibly think about adding the district supervisor where that study is being conducted, to put him on that list, to make him aware of what's going on. I think I was never notified. I can't tell you what happened in Public Works during that time. We had a different director there. But thank you, and I hope we can do something moving forward with this, because there's a lot of outreach from the public right now about moving that sign to where you moved it, and increasing in front of Toyanza and Mountain Ranch Road right here from 30 to 40 miles an hour. I'm looking at some of the statistics that were given to us earlier on the report, and just State Route 49 from Pool Station Road to Airport Road, total number of collisions were 75. 33 of them were rear-ended, and 31 of them were unsafe speeds as the cause of them. Increasing, I know you go the 85 percentile and you do the speed test, or put out the traffic tells you how fast people are going, and you go the 85 percentile. But I think it's going to increase this number dramatically, especially on Mountain Ranch Road and Toyanza. And I'm not sure this included some major accidents that happened on Toyanza over the course of the last 6 months due to the rate of speed there. In my opinion, the 30 mile an hour needs to be moved on the other side of Toyanza in a reduction of speed there. And then we need to make sure that we are policing that speed, that people are aware that it's being policed, so that'll get their attention, as it normally does, to slow down. There was a part of the presentation on earlier about a traffic signal at that location, and when we were doing the studies for the improvements that we had to do, mitigation improvements for the jail and the courthouse, Caltrans was completely opposed of a stoplight in that location because of the site. There's not enough coming over the hill from Airport Road and on a turn and up the hill. Their line of sight, they said, for a traffic signal there is not warranted. So we have to control that with speed, and moving that down now all the way down the road to in front of the Oasis drive-through by that area down there. You've increased a tremendous amount of possible accidents, in my opinion. Especially there's a apartment housing complex next to our Health and Human Services building that a lot of traffic goes in and out of those, and it's now 40 miles an hour in front of those. So that's where most of all of the complaints I'm getting is coming from. So hopefully we can do something to reverse that study and go back and relook at it.
I want to thank you for your feedback and for your candor. I appreciate that. And I will definitely be taking those comments back as well.
Thank you.
I'd like to also chime in. I'd like to thank the Caltrans for the work on installing the lights on Old Vallecito Road and the bypass, Vallecito on Angels Camp bypass. That's a tremendous improvement having that lit at night, especially there. That's just it's always been a dark curve. So appreciate the effort that they've just recently got them up and running.
I also wonder about Angels Camp with Angel Oaks and Greenhorn. That road there, we had asked something about lighting or something when you go into Greenhorn Creek. Do you know anything that is happening along those lines, or do we have, because there's some question about the entrance there into Greenhorn. And at night, you can't really see the street hardly that you're turning into.
There were two elements with regards to that. And you're talking about the street lighting?
Yes.
Yeah, the street lighting, the request for the street lighting precipitated a safety study. So that's currently underway, and the outcome of that, if warranted, will move forward with next steps.
Okay, so you had mentioned that earlier. Okay, I missed that, so good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one other question, if I can. The project that you showed us here that's already starting to take place, started Monday, and a lot of other work in Calaveras County is being done. Do you know, we've been paved coming from both directions here in San Andreas, and over the course of the last few years. And the reason we're told that it can't be paved at San Andreas is because of the crown, and the road is excessive, so it has to be ground down. And we keep hearing that, and we keep seeing projects such as this, and I'm not saying this is a bad project, I'm just saying we're seeing projects all around San Andreas, but not San Andreas being addressed, and that being ground down and that being paved, because there's a lot of work that we have that we'd like to progress on here at COG after that is done, but we're being withheld because we're waiting for Caltrans to do that and get it repaved. And part of that, as I asked earlier about crosswalks, part of what we want to do is add crosswalks in there, but we can't do it. Caltrans won't allow it because they're going to do work there. They're not going to spend the money to do it when we're going to grind it off and redo it. So I would like to at least have some time frame addressed on when we can expect some of that work to be done here in San Andreas. Thank you.
I will definitely take that back. Thank you for your patience while I'm writing these things down. The last item is wayfinding signage. That was an element that was brought forward, and we're aware that there is there's part of a Main Street plan, there's signage elements in there, and we're also aware of a 2011 signage plan. We've reached out to Amy Augustine to continue the dialogue on specific elements of those plans, to identify the focus areas and what the vision is, what you all want to start with first. Because when we look at the signage, is it within our right of way? Is it outside our right of way? What do you want to look at? And my office is open to continue that dialogue to see where that lands, to begin unfolding that.
Has Amy spoken with you about that? This is an Angels Camp, or is it, yeah, that's, I know parking is very important, signs for parking, but a lot more too. But have you been able to discuss that with Amy?
We initiated, we started that discussion, and we let her know that we would like her to come back with specific areas.
All right.
Because it's a plan, right? It's a general plan, so we want to start with some focus areas. So our office is definitely open to that. Last but not least, Caltrans transmitted on July 13th, 2018, to the Secretary of U.S. Department of Transportation, Honorable Elaine Chow, the letter of support for, it was signed by our director, Ms. Berman, for the CalCog Bill 2018 competitive grant application for State Route 4 wagon trail realignment. And so we're very happy to do that.
Great, thank you.
And we support the county's endeavor in that. And that's all I have.
All right.
That
was
a lot.
good.
That's a lot, that's good,
Thank you.
positive.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As it is now just after 6:30, and we are also the Calaveras Transit Agency, we have a scheduled board meeting to start at 6:30 or soon thereafter, feasible. So we're going to recess the COG meeting at this time. For a report.
We can do that after we assemble, because we're scheduled at 6:30, and that's been advised for 6:30. When if you want to do that, we can reopen that.
We will reconvene with public comment on the Caltrans comments at the conclusion of the Calaveras Transit Agency meeting, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are recessing the COG meeting.
Excuse me, if you guys want me to split this up onto DVDs, then we're gonna have to take 5 minutes.
Can you just pause it?
Okay, that's fine. Well, no, because I was asking for recording the council.
Are you recording the transit agency meeting now?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Never mind, if I don't have to switch DVDs, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just want to clarify. So staff is telling you that it's okay to include the continuation of the meeting for the transit agency as part of the COG meeting DVD, and our Arcella program will handle that as two separate meetings.
We'll keep it on the same DVD.
Okay. So now I am calling to order the Calaveras Transit Agency Board meeting of August 1st, 2018. Our first agenda item is the approval of the Calaveras Transit Agency regular meeting minutes for July of 2018 and correspondence under the consent agenda. Do we have any staff, interested party, or council member that would like to pull either the minutes or the correspondence? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
1 and 2.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Catalano. Here it is. And seconded by Councilmember Herman. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. For the Calaveras Transit Agency, this is the public comment session. 5 minutes per person. Comments shall be limited to items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council and not on the posted agenda. Do we have any public comment for the Calaveras Transit Agency? Seeing none. Item number 4. A minute order approving the award of a PSA to develop and manage the Calaveras Transit Advertising Sales Program and authorization for the executive director to execute the contract. Item number 4 is Ms. Collins.
Thank you. As the board is aware, we had the discussion of the advertising program for Calaveras Transit at the last 2 CTA board meetings. At the last board meeting, the board, CTA board, provided direction to release an RFP for a consultant or brokerage service to manage the advertising program for Calaveras Transit. And in the interest of trying to maximize the revenues we might be able to receive through the advertising program this fiscal year, staff look to move forward really quickly on execution of that contract. So we immediately released an RFP for a 2-week process, and we received 1 proposal back from that process. Staff and Phil McGuire reviewed the proposal, felt that was adequate and really addressed the needs of the scope of work. So we do recommend awarding the contract award of the single bidder to Helen Foraker of Foraker Advertising. I believe the board met Helen Foraker, who came to the July CTA board meeting and provided additional information on the services that she might provide. She's partnering with Eric Calerio, who also attended, a hard name to say, who also attended that meeting, and he'll be responsible for development, install, and uninstall of the vinyl graphics on the buses. So the proposal and the contract would be for both of them to work together to completely manage the advertising program. Wouldn't require any staff resources other than they would send us for our sign-off and approval of any ads that would go on the buses. We look to her to help us bring to you the policy for your approval, hopefully at the next board meeting, of the policies and rates. She has, in her proposal, recommended some rates, but we'd like the board approval on those before we proceed.
Council comments on the award and authorization? Public comment on the award and authorization? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So, second.
Okay, who moved? Councilmember Munides with a second by Councilmember Toffenelli.
No,
All those in-
Toffenelli. I seconded.
Right.
Yeah, I thought you said Mills.
Munides moved, Toffenelli second. All those in favor? Aye. Approved 6-0.
You're doing a good job, John.
We've got a rough crowd here tonight. Item number 5, direction to release the Calaveras transit schedule changes for public notice and implementation on September 4th. Ms. Collins.
Right, thank you again. Staff brought forward a presentation of proposed and recommended schedule changes at the last CTA board meeting in July for your review and feedback. Subsequent to that meeting, we reviewed the service changes with the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council and received their feedback, and then finalized the recommendation into schedule changes. To kind of reemphasize this immediate effort, and these changes were really focused on addressing mainly schedule and connectivity issues that could be implemented very quickly. As you can see in the schedule in the staff report, we would like to implement these service changes starting September 4th. We'd like to implement them beginning of a week, but Monday is a holiday, so that's why it's September 4th implementation schedules, and to allow for a 30-day kind of review period with the public. And so I think I can walk through with you some of the changes, but these are consistent with kind of what we walked through at the last meeting, so I won't go into great detail, but if you have any questions, please stop me and we can discuss as we kind of walk through here. So the red line, as discussed last time, we adjusted the schedule to make consistent 90-minute frequencies. So if you see that top Valley Springs, Vista del Lago, every single 90 minutes at 6:20, 7:50, then 9:20, 10:50. The current schedule, it's fluctuates quite a bit, and it's at somewhat random times. So we tried to make it whole numbers for people to remember. And then clearly meeting up at Columbia College was an important connection. We moved back that first run on the red line to make it to Columbia at about 7:55. Previously, or I mean currently, it's arriving at Columbia, I think, yeah, very early, and classes don't start until 8. So we moved that back. And then we made sure we aligned the schedule to make time connections with the Tuolumne transit route that goes directly to Sonora, so that people can make that connection if they want to go into Sonora. Let's see, the purple line. Oh, sorry, I'm skipping, huh? This one, as discussed, the most important piece here was making that direct connection to Sutter Hill Transit Center to make the connection to the Sacramento bus for that morning and afternoon runs. Currently, this line only goes to Rayleigh's in Jackson, and somebody would have to transfer to an Amador bus to get to that transit center. Now we'll go directly there, and then they can transfer to other routes throughout the Amador transit system. We talked about direct connect to the Walmart, but in coordinating with Amador Transit, it sounds like they have 24 trips a day to Walmart. So they have a pretty good circulator system that hits Walmart. So I think we thought it was sufficient meeting up with Amador Transit at Rayleigh's and the transit center. So if somebody needed to connect to Walmart, they could, or anywhere else in Amador. And obviously for the Purple Line, we discussed too, tightening up those connections. I think the drivers had to wait for 40 minutes in Jackson before. Now, there's no wait time needed. Blue Line, we have added a run in there because, as we were tightening up the schedules on the other routes, there was enough vehicle service hours to add a run here up to Arnold and back to Angels Camp, and to make all of those connections in Angels Camp to get to Columbia College, which is, I think, the main ridership we have from Arnold. Let's see. And the Copper Line, I think Cynthia, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only changes is just slight schedule changes to meet up with the Red Line.
Correct.
Yeah. So we didn't adjust Copper too much. I think more analysis needs to be conducted in Copper to really identify, more significant service changes to that area, because that is a low ridership route.
You're doing 4 trips a day? That's how we read that, is 4 trips a day down and back from Copper. Great.
And I know it's on the next agenda item, but I've noticed that the Copper Run has increased in its ridership this month significantly over what it's been in the past year.
At the Columbia College kids started.
That'll do it.
Okay, West Point, or I guess so the Green Line to West Point, we didn't really make any adjustments to this route. We kept it, servicing the same area and with the same frequencies, left it as on demand in the hopes that, reaching more out to the West Point community to advertise and promote this service, through these service changes. We're all aware that West Point's going to require more significant overhaul of services and an analysis of, different types of services like volunteer driver programs. But for now, we thought we'd leave the same level of service. We weren't in the interest of eliminating service to any area at this point. So I guess part of the West Point services we consolidated. There was a Brown Line, which was an on-demand evening service for the students at the high school to make it up to West Point. We've coordinated with the school. That service the last month has received no ridership. And coordinating with the school, I think just demand for that has changed. And they really didn't see a need for that at this moment. So we just kind of merged that Brown Line with the Purple Line. So the Purple Line still provides an offer for a late night service up to kind of the railroad flat area. Hopper, we talked about that, and then Saturday Hopper. So the Saturday Hopper is funded through the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program. And this year, and that's through sale proceeds of the Cap and Trade program, and this year received additional funding for that. So we thought we would add additional runs throughout the day, make it a consistent hour frequency to really try to increase the interest and ridership on this route, really do robust outreach to Angels Camp, Murphy's, and Arnold communities and businesses to really see if we can make this service successful with a little bit more reliability.
And seeing it every hour, that consistency, I think, will make a difference in the longer term, because then people will know, if I missed it this hour, all I've got to do is just go do something for 55 minutes and they'll be back. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I think the benefit of the Saturday Hopper, as well as it'll serve quite a few events just through this service. You won't have to do a special event service. You're just naturally serving a lot of events.
A lot of events though are late at night. This is only going to 6 p.m.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Yeah, we've talked about looking at,
20 and
you know, a summer,
Yeah.
a summer late run potentially to meet kind of some of those summer concert events that are at the different vineyards and in downtown Murphy's and Angels Camp. So that's one thought that we were looking at.
Do we have any specific numbers of, after the financial meltdown, we lost 15,000 people. Do we have any specific numbers to tell us where we lost them so that we know where the population's reduced and that we can explain ridership issues?
You mean in terms of the countywide general population?
Sure.
Yeah, losing. Well, I think, you know, we did our short range transit plan several years ago that definitely looks at demographics and where, you know, the population trends and changes. I think we need to reevaluate West Point area. Clearly, there's been not only economic changes up there, but disaster that's kind of changed that community and demand up there. But, you know, that's definitely a piece of this puzzle in terms of figuring out where people are trying to get to and what the population changes are. But I think Copper and West Point are the ones that have been just the most significant in terms of demographic changes and changing demand for transit. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I just was curious if we had access.
Yeah, and we're doing, we'll be initiating the coordinated human services transit plan that will look at that as well.
Well, I think the Saturday Hopper being run one day a week is becoming kind of successful. It almost rivals the Copper line for ridership.
You're jumping an agenda item there now.
Yeah, I know, but he's sitting over there, so.
Thank you.
But it looks very successful, and you know, it's, again, like as you brought up, we might be able to look at expanding it to the later time, because it leaves at 6:20 Black Bart and Murphy's right now, the last one. What I'm looking at, 6:20, if you're trying to catch some of those events, is a little bit
Early, a little early.
early. You know, might look at running it to 7:10 or 7:20 or whatever, another hour, hour and a half, to cover some of those events in Murphy's. You're not going to get Ironstone because that lasts sometimes till 12 o'clock at night,
Right.
you know. But, you know, Chatham Vineyards and the other ones that do some concerts, some of those end at like 8 o'clock or so. So you might be able to pick up some of them if you expand to some of those destinations. But I think it's doing very well right now compared to just one day a week, 4 times a month. The ridership is rivaling a lot of the other ones. So
Yeah, and we're in the summer months now, so
Yeah.
that's when it really pops.
Just something to touch on what he just said is, if we do extend our service, can we utilize those CMAQ funds to fund this, being that having the transit out there longer, it does serve that air mitigation
Right.
concern.
Yeah, CMAQ funds in the past, I think we've used it for transit in the past.
Okay.
So that's, I think, something to look at in the future when we have potential programming issues.
No, I agree with Mr. Tofinelli that a Saturday Hopper one day a week is doing what some of these other lines are taking 5 days to do. So that's a spectacular result.
Any further council comment on the schedule changes? We're being asked to provide direction to release this transit schedule to the public and notice and implementation as of September 4th. Do we have that direction from the council? I'm sensing that we do. Does this also include the reduction of the youth rate to 50 cents?
Yeah, so we'll implement the proposed fare changes, which includes discount for veterans, discount for youth, age 12 and under, 50 cents per ride.
Okay.
And then currently working with Columbia on a potential semester pass, but that would be, I think that'd just be on the Columbia side in terms of them offering their students a subsidized pass.
So you received your direction.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 6 is the Calaveras Transit Agency Monthly Performance Report.
This item is just informational, providing you with the monthly performance report. This is the last year of last month of the year, so you're seeing the year one totals. We're currently working with the county to get the year-end performance report together, but that requires getting operating costs for the whole year-end performance report. But I think this gives you a good idea of kind of the ridership trends. I think compared to last year when I was looking, I think it was about a 45,000 ridership total, so we're still in a downward trend here, but hopefully we can reverse that.
I have a question. County is trying to close her books on August 10th. How are we looking, is reconciling with transit?
Well, I mean, Melissa might have more feedback on that issue, but I think on this,
You haven't?
Yeah.
I'm meeting with her tomorrow at 10.
Okay. All right.
All is, our, fund accounts were right on schedule. I think the county's having some issues because they didn't approve a new budget for 18-19 transit, and I think some invoices came in and some encumbrances needed to be done. So I think there may be an agenda item coming your way.
Okay. What time, you meeting tomorrow with Rebecca?
I'm meeting tomorrow at 10. I'm
10.
meeting on COG stuff. I usually let her know,
You're not meeting with Tim? Tim won't be president?
oh, no. No, I'm trying to get everything I can in her hands in the way of STA for transit to close those books.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Staff reports for the Calaveras Transit Agency. Ms. Collins.
I have nothing additional to report.
Melissa? Okay, we're going to adjourn the Calaveras Transit Agency meeting, and we'll reconvene it, we'll have our next meeting on September 5th at 6:30 or thereabouts in this chamber. Now we're going to reconvene the COG meeting where we left off, and we left off at public comment on the Caltrans report. We have interested public comment for the Caltrans report.
I was able to talk to the Calaveras person, Mr. Chairman, and I'll pass on that.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. County reports. Do we have a county person to discuss county?
No, but I volunteer Dennis.
Thanks.
We're going to decline that as the chair's prerogative right now.
Thank you.
Okay. That's too bad. There is a 14A capital improvement program report included in the agenda package. Actually, 13A is the county's. I would suggest any questions to be emailed, I guess, to Matt Boyer and or Amber. Item 14, transit report. Ms. Lawrence.
You don't have to take this one.
Oh, okay.
But I can speak.
Yeah, she can
Oh,
speak to
okay,
the
I'm
capital.
sorry. I didn't mean to that's fine.
I was going to see if you got up, but this.
Well, the CIP projects listed in the report, we are working with the county on final invoice packages. We're working with the county on their final invoice packages in regards to CalOES expenditures and PTMISCA. In previous reports on transit capital updates, CTA staff is moving forward to expend PTMISCA funding in the way of the software,
The AVL.
AVL software for the transit system, and then the bus stop improvements. It's looking like we might have approximately 28,000 in remaining LOES. So in September, we will give an update and
let you know if we have any recommendations.
The AVL is the tracking system, software?
Yep.
Okay. Good.
Okay. And the city report, and I don't think we have a city staff member here either.
No longer.
So I will make the same comment, that if you have any questions about the CIP 15A report, that you could email either Amber and/or Melissa Eads at the city for information. And with that, we have council member reports. Council.
Nothing to report.
I just want to, I guess, comment with what Ms. Topol said about the autonomous vehicles and possibility of using CMAQ funds. Maybe that's a good thing to look into for our West Point area. I don't know if we necessarily have to do to get involved with that, or if we can even use our CMAQ money for that, but maybe that's something to look into in the future when we are updating our transit after this most recent transit update. So that's all.
I have nothing to report. My comments were directed for Caltrans for this evening's meeting. So that's all I had to report.
Ms. Herman.
Well, we did pass our budget, which is good, so we got that done. And I think you're aware, I can't remember if we shared this before about the sales tax. The sales tax will be on the November ballot, a half cent. So it'll be up to 7.75%. So we're hoping to be able to accomplish that because it's very important. We have a very, very tight budget and we really need more revenue. So that's the plan. If you can say a good word now and then to any Angel Camps citizens, would appreciate it.
Would that make us qualified for a self-help county?
No.
Just because it's only a city
Hotel
thing?
tax.
Only if they took that half-cent tax and dedicated it to transportation specific in the 218 notices of the half-cent tax, and they would be restricted for that money. That money would have to be restricted to transportation projects. They're not doing it. It's a general fund.
Yeah, general fund for sure.
Yeah,
And we definitely need general.
And then you would need supermajority for that because it's
Yeah.
a special tax.
We can't be specific. Yeah, we're not being
Right.
specific.
So it's a 50 plus
They
one.
only need 50
It is.
plus one.
All right.
That's it.
I don't have any comment myself, so we go on to staff reports. Okay, Amber, you have a very nice summary here. I think you should
Yeah.
highlight your summary.
Yes.
Because
I
you
think
have a lot of good
if you have
stuff in
time
there.
for some fun reading, there's my staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions in there.
Good report. Well, I want to highlight the fact that Angels Camp was awarded a grant award of $1.9 million for construction. That's as a result of SB1 money. So anybody who you are talking to, it's an unfortunate thing, but the Republicans were successful at Prop 6 to get SB1 overturned. And it's a retroactive overturn when you were talking with friends and folks up in this area, and they say, I don't want to pay 12 cents a gallon, which is really a minimal amount when you consider you can drive across town to save that money or pay cash instead of using your credit card. And the local area here, not only are funding studies being funded because of the SB1 monies that are coming in, now we can actually see directly that Angels Camp's getting 1.9 million for improvements. It's benefiting us right here, guys. And I really hope that we can get that message out, that it's not wasted money, it's not money that's just going into the California state coffers. This is money that's coming right back here and helping us. So I hope we can get that message out. And thank you for noting that on the report. With that,
Wait, I have a couple questions on her report.
okay.
We voted earlier concerning the Valley Springs. It was on the consent agenda for that committee application.
Yeah, it was the flyer for the committee application, so we'll
Yeah.
vote on that at the next
And
meeting.
what's your plan to advertise for that so we can get it out to the public for them to obviously you're going to go to our website and download it, or it's going to be available to other places, but the marketing of that so we can get people actively going on that, because again, the schedule that you have is very aggressive. So we need to get,
Yeah, I think I provided a month for that one to try to get more interest. But, Aaron's been helping with advertising, promoting that. I think we did the Pine Tree, but I don't believe I've seen them post that yet. Obviously, our website, Facebook page, myvalleysprings.com.
And I forwarded it to the school, and I'm waiting to hear back from Trailer Sources if they have recommendations of anybody they want me to send it to.
how about a flyer in Valley Springs News? Did we look at doing that? I think we could probably get that.
Well, we
pretty
sent press releases to all the news
Yeah,
outlets,
I'm
including
looking for it.
Valley Springs News, but we'd be happy to actually purchase like an ad spot.
good. Yeah, an ad or just a flyer in there. I think it's not that expensive. It's only like
Okay.
$118 for a flyer. And maybe on one side advertising, on the other side an application that they can actually fill out and mail or whatever.
Okay.
So we get people involved. And then the Pope Street one, what's the plan for that? Because we're going to be going along the same lines that we're doing here in Valley Springs.
Right, so we received 3 planning grants at the same time, the Valley Springs, the Angels Camp, North Main Street, and the Pope Street. So we've been kind of staggering the release of the RFP. So Valley Springs was first because that was a very high priority of the communities. We're currently in the middle of the RFP process for the Angels Camp, North Main Street, and then in the fall, we'll look to release RFP for the Pope Street.
All right.
Because we anticipate the project schedule of the Pope Street one being not as lengthy as Angels Camp or Valley Springs, just because those provide a broader spectrum of public outreach needs. So I think Pope Street, we can have a kind of a shorter time frame of the project.
Okay. I think your applications are due by August 17th from what I saw for the planning for Valley Springs, that committee.
Sounds right.
So
Oh.
we're already at the first, so, okay. I just want to make sure we have a full committee and we have people that we can aggressively go forward on it.
And we can extend, I believe, have we received 2 applications? So we can easily, on the advertising, extend it out to further late August because we're just looking to bring it to the COG September 5th. So we can do that and then post an ad in my Valley Springs newspaper.
So, yeah, Valley Springs.
Valley Springs News, sorry.
Valley Springs News.
Yes.
And
And
then make
then,
a flyer with advertising on one side. I think it won't cost that much. I'm thinking for some reason $118 is stuck in my mind for a flyer. If you have the information on one side and the application on the other side, we'll definitely get some responses.
You talking about an insert, the stuffer?
Yeah.
That he does, yeah, in the paper.
In the
Gotcha.
newspaper. And your work on the Murphy's Complete Street is on target with timeline?
yes, yeah, we're doing very well with that project. Our 3rd community workshop is planned for October, I believe. Currently, right now, working with Caltrans. We've met with them once. We went back and did some revisions to the alternatives, and then going back to a meeting with Caltrans in August, which we're in now, and then before we go back out to the community.
And you've had good public input on that one?
Oh, yes, that's been a very good project.
I got some back.
Yeah, there's been a lot of feedback and involvement. The community workshops were really successful, and everybody was really engaged, so I've been happy with that process, yeah.
Okay. Seeing nothing further for our executive director's staff report, I'm going to adjourn this meeting as of 7:10, and we're going to go into closed session for the executive director evaluation. Our next meeting for the COG will be on September 5th at 5:30 in these chambers. Thank you.